Welcome back. This one gets very real, very fast.
We're talking fertility timing, endometriosis, IVF, and why waiting has consequences.
Okay, that is already a rude opening.
It is rude, but biology is not polite.
The part that hit me was how many women get told not to worry.
That's the trap, because not bleeding is not the same as being fine.
The body really said, surprise, your whole system matters.
Estrogen affects the brain, bones, heart, and long-term health.
So women saying, I do not want a period are missing the point?
They often are because periods are information, not a punishment.
And the fertility piece is just one layer, right?
Exactly, because low estrogen can mean fatigue, brain fog, and weaker bones later.
Wait, so it is not only about babies at all.
No, it is whole body health, and fertility is one window into that.
Then endometriosis is the word that everybody knows, but nobody actually understands.
That is painfully accurate.
What actually is it, in normal people language?
It is endometrial tissue growing where it should not, and the body attacks it.
So your own body sees it like an invader?
Yes, and that attack creates inflammation, pain, scar tissue, and fertility issues.
That is so unfair because it can look normal from the outside.
Very normal periods can still hide severe endometriosis.
And the diagnosis is surgery only? That feels prehistoric.
Medicine is occasionally a little embarrassing like that.
A little embarrassing is generous.
The camera goes through the belly button in a laparoscopy.
Belly button camera is crazy, by the way.
It is very sci-fi and very real.
The wild part is the treatment conflict.
Right, because stopping ovulation helps the disease but also stops conception.
So the thing that protects you also blocks the goal.
That is the brutal trade-off with many fertility conditions.
That's why IVF becomes such a big deal here?
Yes, because it can take eggs out of that inflammatory environment.
So the lab is basically the controlled version of the body.
Exactly. Temperature, pH, sperm, embryos. Everything can be optimized.
And then you can freeze embryos too, which still sounds fake to me.
Embryos in the freezer sounds fake until it saves your family plan.
Science really said, put it on ice and revisit later.
Embryos are stronger than eggs, and that changes the whole math.
Walk me through the math without making my brain cry.
A lot of eggs do not survive thawing, fertilization, or development.
So 20 eggs is not 20 babies at all.
Not even close, because every step has a drop-off.
And age gets baked into that drop-off.
Yes, because chromosomal abnormalities rise as egg age rises.
That part feels like the least negotiable thing in the world.
Age is the giant variable nobody can outsmart forever.
People really think IVF is just one shot, one embryo, done.
Usually it takes several embryos to get to a live birth.
So the real target is enough genetically normal embryos.
Exactly, and sometimes that means banking earlier than people expect.
Which is why the whole freeze your eggs conversation gets so loaded.
Because it feels like a confession, when it is really a planning tool.
The stigma is doing so much damage here.
It keeps people silent until the problem has already become harder.
That is such a painful pattern, honestly.
And it is worsened when couples never discuss family size early.
Family planning becomes family panic.
That is exactly what it turns into.
The embryo banking idea is the smartest thing people never talk about.
It is huge for someone who wants several children later.
Especially if they start trying in their late 30s.
Right? Because the odds get much worse for the fourth child.
Nature is very rude to big ambitions.
Very rude.
I also love the myth-busting around sex and conception.
People do so many unnecessary things and none of them help.
The pillow under the hips one is classic nonsense.
Sperm are not waiting for a dramatic pose.
They are inside the tubes in minutes?
Yes, and intercourse every day or every other day is usually fine.
So people do not need to save sperm like it is rare wine?
Please do not make sperm into a limited edition product.
That line alone is worth the episode.
Even orgasm can help, but there is no magic position.
The internet hates that answer because it is too boring.
Biology is boring in the least sexy way.
Then there is the birth control conversation, which got really nuanced.
The pill itself is not the villain, but the way it was used matters.
Meaning women got put on it without the deeper diagnosis.
Exactly. And then years later, nobody knows why periods are irregular.
So the pill can hide the clue instead of solve the mystery.
It can, while still being incredibly helpful for some people.
That's the part social media misses, right?
Completely, because people want a simple hero or villain.
The body does not care about content strategy.
Not even a little.
The emotional side was maybe the heaviest part for me.
It is impossible not to feel the grief in these stories.
That story about miscarrying while working was devastating.
It shows how hidden infertility pain can be, even when someone looks fine.
People carry so much alone.
And the worst part is shame makes them carry it quieter.
What struck you most about that moment?
The message that the meaning becomes clearer later, not in the middle.
That is such a hard thing to hear when you are in it.
It is, but hope is sometimes the only thing people can borrow.
And when treatment fails, the answer is not always keep pushing the same plan.
Right. Sometimes you need another opinion or a different family-building path.
Donor egg, donor sperm, donor embryo, all of that.
Yes, and that is not failure. It is often adaptation.
That reframing is huge, actually.
Because the goal is a child or a family, not one rigid method.
I think that is the thesis of the whole episode.
Plan earlier, learn sooner, and do not wait for regret to teach you.
That is a brutal but useful way to end the run.
And a kinder one is, get information before time makes the choice for you.
That feels like the right note for the whole series, honestly.
I think so too, and I am glad we stayed with the hard stuff.
We really did not let the easy version survive.
Not even for a second.
All right, that wraps episode 3 and the series.
Thank you for staying with us through all of it.
Welcome back. This episode is about fertility timing, hidden risks, and the stuff nobody tells you until it is expensive.
And it is really about not letting the clock make decisions for you.
That line alone should be on a billboard, honestly.
People would hate it, which is usually how you know it is useful.
The wild part is how many women are told nothing is wrong while something is clearly wrong.
Exactly. And then years later, they are shocked that the same problem is still there.
That birth control point hit me hard, because the pill can hide the signal, not solve the issue.
Right, it can be helpful, but it should never replace diagnosis.
So the body is sending a memo and everyone is filing it in the trash.
That is exactly the problem, just with better lighting.
Endometriosis sounds like one of those words people hear for years and still cannot define.
It is inflammatory tissue behaving badly outside the uterus and reacting to estrogen.
And that can mean pain that makes people cancel dinner or miss school?
Yes, and that level of pain is not normal.
That is such a huge thing to miss because people are normalized into suffering.
And suffering quietly is often what delays care the longest.
The surgical diagnosis part is brutal too, because there is no neat blood test.
You often have to see it directly, which is part of why it gets missed.
So by the time most people get the answer, the damage has already been happening.
Often, yes, which is why early suspicion matters so much.
And then the treatment gets weird, because the thing that helps pain can block pregnancy.
That is the frustrating paradox, yes.
Fertility is just full of these awful trade-offs.
It is, and people deserve to know those trade-offs before they are in them.
The embryo freezing explanation was the part that felt like a cheat code.
It is powerful because you are changing the timing and the environment at once.
And you can freeze embryos, not just eggs, which somehow still feels futuristic.
It does sound like science fiction until you see the outcomes.
But eggs are like potential, while embryos tell you way more about the actual odds.
Exactly. Because fertilization and development reveal what the egg alone cannot.
And the age math is the real gut punch, because the number of normal embryos drops fast.
Age is still the biggest factor we cannot wish away.
Biology is such a terrible negotiator.
It really is not interested in our feelings.
I love the part about family planning versus family reaction, because that is painfully accurate.
People usually panic later and call it planning.
That is the entire modern lifestyle, honestly.
And it is why early conversations matter so much.
Still, some people hear IVF and instantly think they are broken.
That stigma is one of the biggest barriers to care.
Which is insane because it is just another medical tool.
Exactly. And for some people, it is the best tool available.
The part about costs was sobering too, because this stuff is not emotionally expensive, it is financially savage.
It can be, and that reality decides access for a lot of people.
Half the price for eggs, more for IVF, then storage fees every year.
Yes, and those numbers quietly shape who gets to plan ahead.
Which makes the whole conversation about timing even more brutal.
It is brutal, but it is still better than regret later.
And the myths around getting pregnant naturally are hilarious in the worst way.
People have a lot of confidence in pillows and gravity.
A pillow has become a fertility strategy, which is embarrassing for civilization.
Truly, sperm are not doing detours because someone stood up too early.
I was surprised you said frequent sex can actually be fine, even better.
Yes, because the goal is healthy sperm, not scarcity theater.
Scarcity theater is outrageous, but that is exactly what people do.
They start turning intimacy into logistics and then wonder why it is stressful.
And stress itself was part of the whole picture, not the whole picture, but part of it.
Right, because obesity, toxins, marijuana, and sperm decline are all real factors too.
That sperm decline piece feels under-discussed in the public conversation.
It is under-discussed, and it matters more than people think.
We act like fertility is only a female problem until it is inconvenient not to.
Exactly, and that mindset hurts couples.
The emotional side was probably the strongest part for me, because the shame is so heavy.
Shame makes people isolate, and isolation makes everything harder.
Especially after losses, when people feel like everybody else got the script except them.
Yes, and they need support long before they get to the end of the road.
That story from her own loss was devastating, but also strangely grounding.
It reminded me that clinicians carry the same fears as patients.
Which makes the job both more human and more painful.
It does, and that humanity is not optional in this work.
I also liked the idea that people should get a second opinion without guilt.
They absolutely should, especially when time is limited.
Because if the plan keeps failing and nobody is changing the plan, that is a problem.
Exactly. And people should not have to prove suffering for years first.
That is the pattern in so much medicine, and it is exhausting.
But fertility especially punishes delay.
So the real message is not panic, it is information and earlier action.
Yes, and compassion while you are making those choices.
That feels like the cleanest summary of the whole series.
It does, and I am glad we stayed with the hard truths.
We definitely did not take the easy route once in 3 episodes.
Not even close, which is probably why it mattered.
And if someone listening needed one thing, it is probably to ask earlier than they planned.
Yes, ask early, test early, and do not let stigma make the decision.
That is a wrap on the series, and honestly a very important one.
Thank you for staying with us through all of it and for taking this seriously.
Welcome back. This one gets into timing, fertility myths, and why waiting can get expensive.
And the brutal part is that the body does not care about our excuses.
The body is the least romantic accountant on earth.
It really is, and it charges interest.
The thing that hit me most was how many people think periods are just a nuisance.
Missing periods can affect brain health, bone health, and long-term longevity.
Wait, so it is not just fertility, it is the whole system?
Exactly. Estrogen protects far beyond reproduction.
That part should be taught way earlier than it is.
It should be normal health education, not a panic conversation at 35.
And then there is endometriosis, which sounds common but somehow still mysterious.
It is inflammatory tissue behaving badly outside the uterus.
So the body is basically starting a civil war over monthly plumbing.
That is actually a painfully good way to say it.
What surprised me was that pain is not always the full story.
Right. Someone can have endometriosis and still have regular periods.
So they can look fine on paper and still be dealing with chaos.
Exactly, which is why unexplained infertility is often not really unexplained.
That phrase feels like medicine saying, we gave up too early.
Sometimes yes, and that is why deeper testing matters.
And for endometriosis, IVF becomes less of a luxury and more of a workaround.
It can change the environment where egg and sperm meet.
That makes it sound less like science fiction and more like engineering.
It is both, honestly, because we are controlling variables nature does not.
The thing I could not stop thinking about is family planning versus family reaction.
That is exactly the problem. Most people are reacting way too late.
They are basically building a life plan through emotional damage control.
That is a harsh but accurate diagnosis.
And if someone wants 3 or 4 kids, that changes the math completely.
It changes everything, because age compounds with every child you want.
So the dream size of the family can quietly become the hardest variable.
Yes, and people rarely do that math early enough.
Embryo banking felt like the wildest part to me.
It is a very powerful option when the timing is not ideal.
You can literally freeze embryos and come back later, like saving a draft.
That is a very modern way to describe it, but yes.
And embryos are stronger than eggs, which feels unfair somehow.
Eggs are fragile single cells, embryos are much more resilient.
So egg freezing is helpful, but it is not some magical guarantee.
Exactly. It is an investment, not an insurance policy.
That is such a devastatingly honest sentence.
I know, but it is the truth people need.
And then the cost is where reality hits people in the face.
Yes, which is why people delay decisions even when they should not.
The emotional part is that delay feels free, but it is not.
It can become the most expensive choice of all.
I also love the myth-busting around sex, because everybody is improvising out there.
People are absolutely improvising with confidence.
A dangerous combination.
Very dangerous, yes.
So there is no need to save sperm like it is a limited edition bottle.
Right. Sex every day or every other day is completely fine.
And the sperm get where they need to go in minutes?
Minutes, yes, not hours on a scenic journey.
The romance is gone, but the efficiency is incredible.
Science is not always sexy, but it is useful.
The pillow under the hips thing is just folklore, then.
Total folklore, and urinating after sex is actually helpful.
Wow, so people are out here doing theater for no reason.
Pretty much, yes.
Birth control was another big one because the internet has become feral about it.
The pill does not cause infertility, but it can hide an existing issue.
So people blame the pill when the real problem was already there.
Often, yes, and that delay creates frustration later.
That is such a hard trade-off, because it can also genuinely help people.
It absolutely can, especially for endometriosis, PMDD, and pain.
So the issue is not the pill itself, it is the absence of diagnosis.
Exactly, and the absence of family planning conversations.
That is the part nobody wants to say out loud.
But it is the part that changes lives.
The stigma around IVF still feels huge, though.
It is huge, and it keeps people silent when they should ask questions.
People love acting like biology is a moral test.
They really do, and it is exhausting.
What I loved is that you kept bringing it back to choice.
Yes, because informed choice lowers regret.
Even if the choice is not to freeze eggs, at least it is a real choice.
Exactly, and that matters enormously.
The hardest line for me was when you talked about telling people it may not happen.
That is one of the hardest things in my job.
Because you are not just treating a body, you are holding somebody's future.
Yes, and sometimes the future has to be rebuilt in a different way.
That takes a kind of honesty most people never get from medicine.
It should be the baseline, not the exception.
This whole series kept landing on the same truth, which is that time matters.
Time matters, but so does emotional support and good information.
And not waiting until your life is already on fire.
Preferably not, no.
I think that is why this conversation hits so hard.
Because everybody knows somebody or will become somebody in this story.
And if people only take one thing from all 3 episodes, it is ask earlier.
Ask earlier, test earlier, and do not let shame make decisions for you.
That is a strong place to end, honestly.
It is, and I am glad we stayed with the hard truths.
Same, because the easy version would have been useless.
Completely useless.
To everyone who has been with us through the series, thank you for staying open.
And thank you for listening with compassion.
We will leave it there, and hopefully this made one hard conversation easier. Welcome back. This one gets into timing, embryos, and the stuff nobody explains properly.
And the big idea is simple. Waiting has a cost, and ignorance has one too.
That is such a brutal way to say it, but also correct.
People think fertility is just a baby question, but it is a whole body health question.
That part about estrogen affecting the brain was wild to me.
If someone is not having periods, that is not a cosmetic inconvenience.
Because people really do talk like it is just, great, fewer periods.
And then they show up later exhausted, foggy, and confused about why everything feels off.
So the missing period is basically the body waving a red flag?
Exactly, because estrogen protects bone, brain, and long-term health.
So the monthly annoyance was actually doing payroll for the whole body.
That is one way to say it, yes.
Okay, endometriosis still feels like one of those words people hear and instantly panic.
It should make people pay attention, especially if periods are painful enough to ruin life.
Not just uncomfortable, like actually canceling plans?
Yes, if it is stopping school, work, or normal life, that is not normal.
And the weird part is you can have it and still have regular periods, right?
Yes, which is why so many people get missed for years.
So on the outside, everything looks fine, and meanwhile, the inside is causing chaos.
And that chaos can create inflammation, scar tissue, blocked tubes, and infertility.
Which is why IVF becomes the workaround, not because nature failed morally or something.
Right. It lets us control the environment and skip some of the damage.
It is crazy that you can basically give the body a pause button.
More like a strategic reset, because suppressing ovulation can stop progression.
And then people panic that the pill ruined their fertility forever.
The pill does not cause infertility, but it can hide the original problem for years.
So the pill gets blamed for a crime it did not commit.
Pretty much. And then the real issue shows up when people are ready to conceive.
The family planning point hit me hard because most people are doing family reaction.
That is exactly it, and then everybody acts surprised when biology keeps score.
The age math is the part nobody wants to hear, but everybody has to hear.
Egg quantity and egg quality both decline with age, and that changes the whole equation.
So when people freeze embryos instead of eggs, it is basically buying more information.
Yes, because embryos tell us more than eggs ever can.
And embryos survive freezing better than eggs, which sounds backward somehow.
Embryos are much stronger, and egg freezing is still a probabilistic bet.
I love how you keep refusing the word insurance.
Because insurance implies certainty, and this is just risk management.
That part about needing 2 to 3 normal embryos per child was eye-opening.
That is the practical number if you want to stack the odds well.
So one embryo transfer is cleaner, but you still might need a few rounds.
Exactly, because success depends on how many genetically normal embryos you have.
And the genetic testing is checking chromosome number, not just vibes and hope?
Definitely not vibes, just chromosome counts and disease screening.
The disease screening part is the thing people do not realize IVF can do.
It can help avoid inherited conditions like cystic fibrosis or Huntington's disease.
That is huge, because that is not just fertility, that is family history.
Exactly, and that is why the conversation should start before desperation.
The cost is still brutal, though, let us not pretend otherwise.
It is expensive, and access absolutely shapes who gets to act early.
Which means the people who need the most information often get it the latest.
And then shame makes them delay even more, which is the worst loop.
The stigma around IVF feels so outdated when you say it out loud.
It is outdated, but it still stops couples from having honest conversations.
Like, imagine telling your partner and hearing your own fear echo back.
That is why the conversation matters before the clock gets loud.
I also keep thinking about the myth that intercourse has to be optimized like a machine.
People really do turn love into a logistics project.
Clear the pipes, angles, elevation, spreadsheet, all very romantic.
And most of it is nonsense, because sperm get where they need to go fast.
So no foot-up-the-wall performance art after sex?
No, just live your life and maybe pee after to lower UTI risk.
That might be the most anti-myth sentence in the whole series.
Good, because people deserve fewer fertility myths and more usable truth.
I keep coming back to the emotional part, because the losses sound devastating.
They are, and the shame around miscarriage or failed treatment makes it worse.
The part about carrying on through a shift while miscarrying was haunting.
It is the kind of pain that rearranges how you see other people's joy.
And somehow she turned that into empathy instead of shutting down.
That is what patients need most, truth without cruelty.
So if someone listening has irregular periods, painful periods, or known PCOS, what then?
Do not wait for failure. Get evaluated early and make a plan.
And if the first doctor is vague or dismissive, Get a second opinion.
Always, because time matters too much to stay stuck in a bad answer.
That feels like the real thesis of the whole series, honestly.
Ask early, test early, and let information reduce fear.
That is a much better life strategy than hoping biology is feeling generous.
Biology is not generous on request, unfortunately.
All right, final lap, because this was a heavy one, but a necessary one.
If this helped even one person start the conversation, it was worth it.
And if you are listening and carrying shame, borrow our confidence for a minute.
We will leave you with the same thing the whole series kept saying: talk sooner.
And do not let fear be the loudest voice in the room.